Archaeologists behind the discovery of King Richard III's remains under a car park in Leicester hit the site today to begin work on another new dig.
Beneath the faded painted lines of an ordinary municipal parking lot in Leicester, a 500-year-old secret was waiting to surface. Every day, commuters parked their cars and walked directly over the site, completely unaware of the deep history buried beneath their feet. For over 5 centuries, the story of Richard III of England had been shaped by the victors. Struck down at the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, he became the last English king to die in battle. His unclothed body was slung over a horse, paraded through the streets in humiliation, and then buried in a hastily dug grave at a local monastery. Decades later, during the English Reformation, that monastery was destroyed. Its stones were taken away, the land was paved over, and the precise location of the king's grave disappeared from memory. While time erased his burial place, a deliberate political narrative worked to erase his humanity. The Tudor dynasty, which rose to power after his death, needed to legitimize its fragile claim to the throne. They reshaped the fallen king into something monstrous. William Shakespeare immortalized Richard III as a twisted, venomous tyrant, a hunchbacked villain who murdered his own nephews, the princes in the Tower, to seize power. For centuries, that dark portrayal became accepted as truth. But modern science had a different story to tell. Advances in forensic archaeology, ground-penetrating radar, and the precise science of ancient DNA began to dismantle that 500-year-old narrative. The rediscovery of Richard III began with the determination of historian Philippa Langley. After years of carefully overlaying medieval maps with modern city layouts, her research consistently pointed to one unlikely location, that ordinary parking lot. At first, her theory was dismissed by many experts, but in August 2012, a team from the University of Leicester began excavations. They cut through the asphalt and into the dense earth below. On the very first day, they uncovered human remains. As archaeologists slowly brushed away layers of compacted soil, a powerful forensic story began to emerge. The skeleton, labeled Skeleton 1, was found in a crude grave that was too short for the body. The head was awkwardly positioned, pressed against the edge of the pit. The arms appeared tightly placed, suggesting the wrists had been bound. This was not the respectful burial of a king, it was the rushed disposal of a defeated enemy. Further analysis revealed more. The remains belonged to a man in his early 30s, matching Richard's age at death, 32. The skull bore multiple battle wounds, indicating he likely lost his helmet and was struck repeatedly during the chaos of combat.
But the most defining feature was the spine. It showed a pronounced lateral curvature, a clear case of adolescent-onset scoliosis. His right shoulder would have been noticeably higher than his left, placing strain on his body. Suddenly, the Tudor-era image of a grotesque monster began to collapse. Shakespeare's portrayal had exaggerated reality, but it had roots in truth. Richard was not a mythical villain. He was a physically impaired man who still managed to fight in armor and lead in battle until the end. Still, physical evidence alone was not enough. To confirm the identity beyond doubt, scientists turned to DNA. Extracting genetic material from remains buried for over 500 years is incredibly difficult, where even slight contamination can ruin results. So researchers focused on mitochondrial DNA, passed down through the maternal line. Although Richard III left no direct heirs, he had a sister, Anne of York. Through extensive genealogical work, researchers traced an unbroken female line spanning 17 generations to a living descendant, Michael Ibsen. A DNA sample was taken and compared with the ancient remains. The result was clear, a perfect match. The shared genetic signature was extremely rare, making coincidence nearly impossible. The remains found beneath that parking lot were confirmed to be Richard III. But scientists went further. To test royal lineage, they analyzed the Y chromosome, passed from father to son. They compared Richard's genetic data with living male line descendants of Edward III of England. The expectation was simple, a match. Instead, the result was shocking. There was no match at all. Somewhere across nearly 19 generations, the paternal line had been broken. In genetic terms, this is called a false paternity event. In historical terms, it suggests a hidden rupture in the royal bloodline, an instance of illegitimacy that went unnoticed but reshaped history. The implications are enormous. If the break occurred early, it could mean that Richard III, his brother Edward IV of England, and even the princes in the Tower were not biologically part of the Plantagenet line they claimed to represent. The Wars of the Roses may have been fought over a crown with no true genetic legitimacy. This also casts new light on one of history's greatest mysteries, the fate of the princes in the Tower. While Richard has long been blamed for their disappearance, the evidence is less certain. He had already declared them illegitimate through legal means, weakening their claim. Attention then shifts to Henry VII of England, who ultimately seized the throne. His claim to power was far weaker, and the survival of the princes would have threatened his rule. He had far more to gain from their disappearance and from shaping a narrative that blamed Richard.
The discovery of Richard III of England beneath a parking lot in Leicester isn't just a historical curiosity, it has real implications even today. History can be rewritten by evidence. For centuries, the image shaped by the Tudor dynasty and popularized by William Shakespeare dominated public perception. This discovery proves that history is not fixed. New scientific tools like DNA analysis can challenge long-held narratives and expose bias or propaganda. Power of science in solving historical mysteries. The use of genetics, especially mitochondrial DNA, showed how modern science can solve cases that seemed permanently lost. It demonstrates that archaeology today is no longer just about digging. It's about combining technology, biology, and history to reach near-certain conclusions. Royal lineage is less pure than believed. The Y chromosome mismatch suggests a break in the royal male line tracing back to Edward III of England. This raises a deeper point. The idea of a perfectly preserved royal bloodline is likely a myth. While it doesn't change the legitimacy of modern monarchs legally, it undermines the historical concept of divine or biological right to rule. History is often written by those who win. For centuries, the image of a monstrous king and a pure royal bloodline went unquestioned. But beneath a quiet parking lot, science uncovered a very different truth. The bones of Richard III not only solved a centuries-old mystery, but also revealed the fragility of historical narratives. They showed that power, propaganda, and perception can distort reality, but evidence, preserved in earth and DNA, tells its own story. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries are not hidden in distant lands or guarded archives. Sometimes, they lie quietly beneath our everyday lives, waiting for the right moment and the right tools to bring them back into the light. If you found this story compelling and want more deep dives into history, archaeology, and groundbreaking discoveries, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the reputation of Richard III of England was unfairly shaped by history? Stay curious and keep exploring the stories hidden beneath the surface.